The rain battered the windshield of my truck as I idled at the edge of Willow Creek, the neighborhood I called home for a decade. Lightning cracked the sky, illuminating the pristine lawns and cookie-cutter houses that hid a festering war. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, as I stared at the letter crumpled on the passenger seat, a DULA 500 fine, conjured from thin air by Meredith Voss, the self-crowned queen of the HOA. It wasn't addressed to me. It was for my sister, Clara, a single mom barely keeping her head above water. Meredith's latest stunt wasn't just a fine. It was a declaration of war. Clara was crumbling under the pressure, and I'd had enough. Tonight, I wasn't just Jake Harper anymore. I was the reckoning Meredith didn't see coming. Meredith had stormed into Willow Creek 2 years ago like a hurricane in a pantsuit, her clipboard a scepter, her smile a blade. She didn't bother with pleasantries or potlucks. No, Meredith was here to rule. Within weeks, she clawed her way to HOA president in an election that felt more like a coup than a vote. The neighborhood newsletter called it unanimous, but whispers told a different story: ballots misplaced, voters intimidated, and a few too many promises of special exemptions for those who played along. Once she had the title, Meredith didn't enforce rules. She sculpted them to fit her whims. A mailbox painted the wrong shade of beige? Fine. A kid's bike left on the driveway? Violation. A flower pot that clashed with her VY shown of suburban perfection? EVY Ted from your own porch. Her reign was a masterclass in petty tyranny. I'd crossed paths with her early on. She caught me off guard one morning, standing in my driveway, her phone snapping photos of my front yard like she was building a case for the FBI. "Mr. Harper, is it?" she'd said, her voice syrupy but sharp, her eyes scanning a checklist on her clipboard. "I'm Meredith Voss, your HOA president. Your hedge exceeds regulation height by 2 inches. You'll need to trim it by Friday, or there'll be consequences." I'd laughed, thinking it was a joke. Consequences? It's a hedge, lady. It's not blocking the sun. Her smile tightened, a predator sizing up prey. It's about standards, Mr. Harper. You're in Willow Creek now. We have expectations. I wasn't even part of the HOME property, predated its formation, but Meredith didn't care. "You live here, you comply," she'd snapped before striding off, her heels clicking like a metronome of doom. That was just the beginning. Meredith's crusade swept through Willow Creek like a plague. She didn't just target me. She hunted anyone who dared to breathe out of line. Old Mr. Callahan got a DULA 200 fine for a non-compliant birdhouse. The Wilsons were threatened with legal action over a basketball hoop that was, in Meredith's words, an eyesore. But her favorite prey was my sister, Clara. Clara lived 3 blocks away, in a modest house she'd poured her heart into after her divorce. Her daughter, Lily, was 6, all pigtails and giggles, the kind of kid who'd leave chalk drawings on the sidewalk. Clara kept her place spotless, her lawn mowed, her life quiet. But to Meredith, Clara was a sitting duck, a single mom with no fight left to spare. It started small. A note on Clara's door citing improperly stored recycling bins. Then another for unapproved patio furniture. Each violation came with a fine, each fine a little steeper, each threat a little bolder. Clara paid the first few, scraping together dollars she didn't have, hoping to avoid trouble. But Meredith smelled blood. The fines multiplied, the violations grew absurd. A DULA 100 penalty for Lily's swing set, a DULA 75 charge for excessive holiday lights that were just a single strand of white bulbs. By the time the DULA 500 bill arrived, Clara was a wreck. "Jake, I can't do this," she'd whispered over the phone, her voice breaking. "She's saying she'll take me to court. I don't have DULA 500. I don't even have DULA 50. I'd driven to her place that night, found her sitting on the couch, Lily asleep upstairs, while Clara stared at the letter like it was a death sentence. That's when I knew Meredith wasn't just a nuisance. She was a predator, and I was done playing nice. I wasn't the only one fed up. Willow Creek was a pressure cooker, and Meredith was turning up the heat. Neighbors swapped stories and hushed tones fines for unapproved paint colors, threats over unauthorized vegetable gardens. "Mrs. Delgado, a widow who'd lived here longer than anyone, got a notice demanding she remove her rose bushes because they disrupted the aesthetic. She'd cried telling me about it, her hands trembling as she clutched a photo of the garden her late husband had planted. "She's stealing our homes, Jake," she'd said. "Bit by bit, she's taking everything." The more I heard, the more I realized this wasn't about rules. It was about control. Meredith thrived on fear, on the power to make people shrink. But she'd miscalculated. She'd pushed too far, and I wasn't about to shrink. My first move was to confront her. I found her at Clara's house the next day, clipboard in hand, berating my sister about her non-compliant mailbox. Clara stood on her porch, arms crossed, trying to stay calm, while Meredith's voice cut through the air like a whip. "You've had ample warning, mess." "Harper," Meredith was saying, her pen jabbing at her clipboard. "This mailbox is an embarrassment. Replace it, or I'll have it removed." I pulled up in my truck, slammed the door, and marched over. "Meredith," I said, my voice low but steady. "Back off." She turned, her smile a thin veneer over her irritation. "Jake, this doesn't concern you. I'm handling HOA business." He stepped closer, towering over her. "You're harassing my sister. She's not in your HOA, and neither am I. You've got no authority here." Meredith didn't blink. "Authority extends to anyone who undermines our community standards. Clara's property is now under our expanded jurisdiction." I laughed, cold and sharp. "Expanded jurisdiction? You made that up. This is extortion, and you know it." Clara spoke up, her voice shaking but firm. "I've paid every fine you've thrown at me, Meredith. I can't afford this. Just leave us alone." Meredith's smile widened, predatory. "If you can't afford to maintain your property, perhaps you should sell. Willow Creek isn't for everyone." That was the moment I knew talking wouldn't cut it. Meredith wasn't just bullying Clara, she was trying to break her. I grabbed the violation notice from her hand, tore it in half, and let the pieces fall to the ground. "You're done here," I said. "Get off her property." Meredith's eyes narrowed, but she didn't argue. She turned and walked away, her heels clicking a warning that this wasn't over. It wasn't. The next week, Clara got another letter. This one wore C. Do lot 500 fine for community improvement fees, complete with a threat to lien her house if she didn't pay within 10 days. The charges were a fantasy. Do law 200 for non-compliance. Do law 150 for administrative costs. Do law 150 for landscaping violations that didn't exist. Clara's flower beds, her pride and joy, were suddenly unauthorized. When I saw the letter, my blood ran hot. Clara was sobbing when I got to her place, Lily clinging to her leg, confused. "Jake, what do I do?" Clara asked, her voice hollow. "She's going to take my home." I hugged her tight, promising I'd fix it, but inside I was burning. Meredith wasn't just playing dirty, she was playing God. I started digging. If Meredith wanted a fight, I'd give her one, but I needed ammunition. I knocked on doors, talked to neighbors, collected stories. The picture that emerged was uglier than I'd imagined. Meredith's fines weren't random. They targeted the vulnerable single parents, retirees, anyone too tired or too broke to fight back. Mr. Patel, a quiet accountant, showed me a do lot 300 fine for unapproved window blinds. Ms. Carter, a schoolteacher, had been threatened with EVY tie-in over a hazardous porch swing that had been there for years. Every story fueled my resolve, but I needed more than anecdotes. I needed proof Meredith was breaking the law. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source, old man Ramsey, a grizzled retiree who'd watched Willow Creek change for 40 years. Over coffee at his kitchen table, he leaned in, his voice low. "You notice anything funny about Meredith's place, Jake?" I frowned. "Funny how?" He smirked. "Trucks. Big ones. Roll up to her garage late at night, every week or so. They ain't delivering pizza." My pulse quickened. "You sure?" Ramsey nodded. "See it myself. She's up to something, and it ain't HOA business." That night, I parked down the street from Meredith's house, lights off, and waited. Sure enough, at 1 a.m., a box truck pulled up. Two guys unloaded crates in her garage, MOVYing fast, like they didn't want to be seen. Meredith appeared briefly, gesturing them inside before the door slammed shut. I snapped photos, my heart pounding. Whatever she was doing, it wasn't legal. I called in a favor from a buddy, Tom, who ran a small private investigation firm. Tom was a bloodhound with a laptop, and he didn't disappoint. Within days, he had Dirt Meredith was running an unregistered business out of her garage, selling bulk electronics, likely stolen or smuggled. The trucks were her supply line, and the HOA was her cover. She kept Willow Creek under her thumb to keep nosy neighbors away from her operation. The hypocrisy was almost poetic. Meredith, the enforcer of rules, was the neighborhood's biggest criminal. Tom handed me a folder thick with evidence, photos, transaction records, even a witness who'd worked for her briefly before quitting in disgust. "She's sloppy, Jake," Tom said. "She's been getting away with it because no one's looked too close. Until now. I had her, but I didn't just want to stop her. I wanted to humiliate her, to show Willow Creek she wasn't in V. Wine Seibel. That's when I got the idea for the Excavator. It was drastic, maybe unhinged, but it felt right. Meredith's lawn was her shrine, a perfect emerald square she flaunted like a badge of superiority. I'd turn it into a monument to her downfall. I spent 2 days scavenging broken furniture, rusted pipes, old tires, anything that screamed chaos. I rented a massive excavator, its bucket big enough to hold a car, and loaded it with my haul. The plan was simple: roll up to her house at dawn, dump the mess on her lawn, and confront her with the evidence in front of the whole neighborhood. She'd built her empire on fear. I'd tear it down with spectacle. The morning of the showdown, the sky was gray, the air thick with the promise of a storm. I fired up the excavator, its engine roaring like a beast waking from a long sleep. As I rumbled down the street, curtains twitched, faces appeared in windows. By the time I reached Meredith's house, a crowd had gathered, neighbors in bathrobes, kids on bikes, all drawn by the noise and the sight of a machine that looked ready to level a building. Meredith was already outside, her face a mask of fury, her clipboard clutched like a lifeline. "Jake Harper!" she screamed, her voice cutting through the diesel growl. "What the hell are you doing?" I parked the excavator at the edge of her lawn, climbed down, and faced her. "I'm ending this, Meredith. You've terrorized this neighborhood long enough." She stormed toward me, her heels sinking into the grass. "This is insanity. You're vandalizing my property. I'll have you arrested." I held up the folder, my voice calm, but loud enough for the crowd to hear. "Go ahead, call the cops. But when they get here, we'll talk about your business, the trucks, the crates, the stolen goods you're peddling out of your garage." Her face froze, her eyes darting to the folder. For the first time, I saw fear in her. "You're lying," she hissed, but her voice cracked. I opened the folder, holding up a photo of the truck for the crowd to see. "I've got proof, Meredith. Fake fines, illegal threats, and an unregistered business. You're done." The neighbors murmured, phones out, recording every word. Meredith's confidence crumbled, her clipboard trembling in her hands. "You can't do this," she spat. "I'm the HOA president." I stepped closer, my voice cold. "You're a fraud. And today, everyone sees it." I climbed back into the excavator, raised the bucket high, and tipped it. A cascade of junk shares, pipes, tires crashed on her lawn, a glorious mess that buried her perfect grass. Meredith screamed, lunging toward the machine like she could stop it with her bare hands. "You're ruining everything," she wailed. I leaned out of the cab, grinning. "You ruined this neighborhood, Meredith. I'm just returning the favor." She turned to the crowd, desperate. "Someone stop him. He's a criminal." But no one moved. "Mrs. Delgado stepped forward, her voice steady. "You're the criminal, Meredith. You fined me for my roses, threatened my home. We're done with you." Mr. Patel joined her, then MS. Carter, then Ramsey. One by one, the neighborhood found its voice, their stories pouring out fines, threats, fear. Meredith's empire was collapsing, and she knew it. The police arrived minutes later, sirens cutting through the chaos. Meredith ran to them, hysterical, pointing at the wreckage on her lawn. "Arrest him. He's destroying my property." I handed the folder to the lead officer, a no-nonsense guy named Torres. Take a look at this first, I said. She's been extorting this neighborhood for years, and that's just the start. Torres flipped through the EVY Denke, his expression darkening. Meredith tried to interrupt, her voice shrill, but he held up a hand. Mrs. Voss, we need to talk. At the station, her face went white as they led her to the cruiser, her clipboard abandoned on the ground. The crowd stayed long after the police left, cleaning up the mess I'd made not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Willow Creek wasn't perfect, but it was ours again. Clara hugged me, tears in her eyes. You did it, Jake. I shook my head. We did it. Meredith's house went up for sale a month later. Her business shut down. Her name, a cautionary tale. The HOA dissolved soon after, replaced by a loose council of neighbors who care more about potlucks than power trips. As for me, I kept my hedge 2 inches too tall just because I could. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this VY Deo with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next VY Deo.